Welcome to iPen Visions Podcast, interviews and conversations, where we bring authors, speakers, entrepreneurs, and those with a vision to our networking community and platform. Be our guest. Include your article, your ad, your promotions, and upcoming events in our quarterly magazine. We are proud to be a part of the Collective for a podcast, a virtual tour showcasing you and your business. Our podcast, the magazine, a virtual tour, all on one platform where networking, creativity, and visions meet. All you have to do is contact us at ipendesign@gmail.com. And tonight, welcome to the show. Good evening, good evening, good evening. My name is Nanette Buchanan, and I am boggled. I think that's a good word, boggled. I don't know. We're getting ready to talk to a poet, so we'll see what's a good word for confused, rushed, overwhelmed, underwhelmed, don't know what I want to do, don't know how to do, but I got to do. So I think that's boggled. I think that's what it is. But welcome to iPen Visions, interviews and conversations. And we have something that we only do every now and then, because every now and then we get someone that their inner emotions turn into words that they express themselves with. And most of the time for poets, it's a lot of times for us as opposed to being for an audience. A lot of times we don't look at being, I guess, open, but the words flow. So we're going to talk to a poet tonight, someone who inspires others and has done her work as a ministry through poetry, which I think is beautiful, because everybody reads one poem and says, I remember that poem or that verse. They may not remember the entire thing, but it's something out of it that they remember. So we're going to talk to our guests. But before then, I've got to bring my right hand right on the stage. Hey there, lady. How are you? Good evening.
This clap is for you. This clap is for you.
Girl, I'm going through it. For those that don't know,
you're going through it, but you're overcoming it. Yay.
I'm overcoming. But people don't get old and then decide that you want to relocate. Don't do that. Don't do that. You know,
first of all, don't get old.
Yeah. So how are you? How are you today?
I am well. Unbeknownst to you, I too was rushing to get here.
Yes.
Running through the door, putting lipstick on in one hand and pulling the shirt over my head.
Yeah. It's one of those days. It's one of those days. But you know what?
I don't like
but hey, we're blessed. We're here.
Yes, we are.
And that's what's important. And with us being here, our guest is here. So we're going to kick right in and bring her on. I did mention that she was a poet. I did mention that she's done ministry with her poems and her work. And like I said, being a writer and poetry being my first verse. I didn't even know I was writing poetry. That's how bad I was. You know, I write a couple of lines and be like, oh, that's it. But I did not know that poems did not have to rhyme. They didn't have to make sense to anyone but the person that's writing it. I didn't know that there were no rules, no regulations, that you can just write. And then, here we are some years later, and rap is a form of poetry.
Yeah.
Lyrics to a song is poetry. So when you talk to poets, you're talking to the actual originators of verse that becomes melodic, it becomes soothing, it becomes healing. And we want to hear from our guests. Tonight's guest is Miss Shary Issac. And we want to bring her to the stage, add her on. Yay. Good evening. How are you?
Good evening. It's such a pleasure to be here. Thank you so very much for having me. I'm just tickled to death. I'm excited.
Well, the very first thing that we normally do, and we're gonna, walk you through this because this is how we do every week with our guests, and we try not to do it so that we mess it up. We want you to mess it up. If anything, you be the reason for the. Yeah, you gotta be, because this is we can't do this part, and that part is, could you please tell us who is Shary Issac?
Yeah.
Well, Shary Issac is a child of God. I got saved when I was 17. And it just, I didn't always take the right turns, but God never gave up on me. And, throughout my childhood, I was very, very quiet and very introverted. And I made good grades in English, so that was a plus for me. But I had no idea what He had in mind for my life. And I had went to a church where I got filled with the Holy Ghost, and I didn't know what that was all about. And shortly we had a potluck, and the Lord gave me a prophetic dream full of just three things. He said noodles, poodles, and food. And little did I know, by the end of that week, I would have my very first poem, and I haven't stopped since.
Wow.
Yes,
what
ma'am.
an amazing story.
Beautiful.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I had so much to learn.
Okay, so as a poet, and like you said, it was spiritual inspiration that came about and brought you into that fold. Did you ever, as you wrote your poems, you said you got your first poem that way. Did you get flooded with poems then? Or was it every now and then where something hit and you knew automatically?
It seemed to come in waves, but the name of my book, He Spoke in the Night, when I started suspecting I was on to something, that's when He would wake me right up out of my sleep. And I had learned to keep pen and paper by my bedside.
Yes.
Yeah. How old were you?
I was, let's see, let's say I've been writing for about 25 years, and I'm soon to be 67. So, yeah, go back a ways, probably in my 30s or something, like that.
Okay.
Yeah. But you know what? It's amazing to me every time I talk to an author or I talk to someone who's been writing a while or someone that didn't realize that they had it in them. It's amazing to me to hear my story repeated, because it seems that all of us as writers don't know that that's what we are. We find that talent is truly a hidden talent. And some of us have been doing it just for our own, peace of mind or our own comfort, and don't even realize it. It's almost like the artist that doodles and doesn't really realize that they have artistic, ability to create, and they don't even think about it, that this is something that's been instilled in you. And just imagine, you said you started writing, only 20 some odd years ago, but imagine how long that's been, nesting within you to just put a pen to pad, which is what I always call it. I always say I put pen to pad and just write. And I too have the same problem that you do, that I have to have a pen and a pad near me, because I never know when it's going to hit. So when you get
go ahead. I was going to say just quickly, of that state of being as opposed to becoming, right? Because if you get to acknowledge of this is what you are, or what you're supposed to be, then you have to become that, right? But for the two of you, you were being, you started
Mm-mm.
from that seed
Mhm.
of this is what you are, and then you come into the knowledge of it, but you've already been it for, for a while, so you were already being it instead of having to become it after, as a revelation came,
Mhm.
right? So that's what I wanted to say really quickly, and I
Right.
heard that, and thank God for, again, He allows us to be. When He calls us out, we've already been purposed for whatever He's called us out for. It's already there.
Right.
Don't need to
And
go
that's my
cultivate it or
that's
anything.
and that's where my next question would be. Writing your poetry is one thing,
Mm-hmm.
but then taking it on to say it's a ministry.
Mm-hmm.
How did you develop it? Let me put it this way. It took me a while to recognize that it was helping other people.
Mm-hmm.
So when did you recognize your poems were actually a ministry for others?
Well, when I was going to the church, I told you ladies about where I got filled with the Holy Spirit.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I started writing, and the pastor there, I told him in excitement, I said, I wrote a poem. I wrote a poem. And he let me share. And the very first poem that I wrote was called At the Cross.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm,
although I didn't recognize it, the congregation and the leaders recognized, hey,
recognized. Right.
she's got something prophetic going on here. And I don't know if she realizes it or not, but every time they would always welcome what I had to say.
Mhm.
And it just took off from there.
Mm-hmm.
I was able to have the blessing and the privilege to share in coffee shops and different places, and just
Mhm.
like that, and it just took off.
Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm. So now taking it into again, I always thought, actually, I when I began writing, I began in college, and I did it as I'm bored to death. Let me just write some words. I'm bored to death. Here we are again in this class, and I don't need this class, but they say I got to take this class. I'm bored to death. Let me just write something down. And I just kept doing that until I almost had a volume of poetry by the end of the semester. Because I would go to the class. I made sure I go to
Mm-hmm.
class because I didn't want it to be said that I didn't show up. I didn't, I was in college. I didn't want somebody to say, well, you're not even showing up for the class. But the class was a class I had before in high school. So I already knew the work.
Mm-hmm.
As a matter of fact, I could have taught the class. But I began writing, but I didn't share. I kept all of it to myself. So you saying that, oh, I wrote a poem, was obviously your push to share.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one thing to share when you're pushed, but then it's a whole nother thing to write a book.
Well,
It's one thing to share, it's one thing to say, hey, look what I read, listen to what I'm saying, but it's a whole nother thing to write a book.
Mm-hmm.
So what in you said it's time to go further
Uh-huh.
than the congregation, and I want other people to see my writing. And I say this to you because I have not published my first book of poetry, and I have 3 volumes.
okay,
I have
okay.
not put out my first book of poetry yet. I have it ready, but I
Mm-hmm.
have not brought out it. And I wait for God to kind of kick me
Mm-hmm.
usually before I
Well,
do
Mm-hmm.
something. So he hasn't kicked me yet. He kicked me to say set it up, but he
Yeah.
has not kicked me to say publish it yet. So what made you
Mm-hmm.
decide to go
well,
ahead and take that step?
and thank you. And in that very same church, um,
Mm-hmm.
I grew a lot because I knew that there was just something more than a church I had been attending as a child. And so when the leadership, when they started, really, hey, complimenting me and so forth on what I would write. One Sunday, I brought in a gorgeous bouquet of yellow stem roses with baby's breath.
Oh.
And I shared a poem, and I laid that bouquet of roses upon the altar of the church. And I declared with the promise that I would write a book.
Oh.
Okay.
Declared and decreed it and spoke it out. Here I am. It took a while. I had a lot of spiritual warfare and other things, just, life in general being in the way a lot of times. But, it did come to pass. I've been retired almost 2 years now. And I thought to myself, okay, here I am. I'll have the time now. We'll get her done.
Go ahead and get it done. Go
ahead and get it. There's the lesson of perseverance in that too. Because too many times when we get the revelation, when we get the assignment or the alignment and get it identified, we're like, here it is. We're done. Here it is. But we know that we have to continually walk that path. And it's just about putting one foot in front of the other. And yes, you can run the race swiftly. But most times, it's the turtle versus the hare, right?
It's some days was so overwhelming I couldn't even hardly pick the pen up. Some days was just so full of energy that I'm like, oh yes, how many did I get done today? But I'll tell you what really moved me was my brother got sick, and he died this past November. And early in June, the doctors had said, there's nothing more we could do for him. So from the time, I knew he was feeling bad, to his birthday was in June. And I said to myself, I will get this manuscript finished, and I will have him a copy, because I knew I wouldn't get the original book done probably before he passed. And so I made sure that by his birthday in June, I had mailed off the original copy of the manuscript he spoke in the night. So he had that for his birthday. So that was as close of, getting him the finished book that I possibly could. But he was a great inspiration to me. And he was a lovely man of God. He truly loved the Lord with all of his heart. And he just, I would read him poems over the phone, and we would talk about the Lord. And he just was such an inspiration to me, and, just encouraged me with all the love in his heart to keep press in. So I did. And so his daughter died of brain cancer, and I have a poem and a reflection in her honor in that book, and he got to see that.
Oh, wow, that's beautiful. And sometimes it's the tug and the pull. Because like I said, I've always written poems. I write poems. Sometimes I write poems on a regular basis. I just write. I write inspirational words on a regular basis. I post them on Facebook and everywhere. And I don't even think about, well, you could keep it because it's an inspirational poem or it's an inspirational words. I don't even think of it as that. So I understand your connection with your brother, your connection with your niece, and your connection with the church per se. You have a instant connection with them because they're like a family. They, you like you said, you grew up in the church, the church members and everything. but as it affects others, what impact do you think your poems would have on people that don't know you, or people that maybe aren't quite ready to be that inspirational? I feel the spirit, I feel this, I feel that. There are people that sometimes look at it and go, I don't know if I want to go there.
Yeah.
So how do we connect with your poems if we're not totally connected?
Well, you know, I believe things happen by word of mouth. And although I don't know who will purchase and who will not purchase my book, but I do believe as we live in these last days and so forth, and time, things will happen that will pull people in, and they'll get to the point where they're going to start questioning things. And I believe my book will shed some light on answering some of those things that they're searching for. Because not everybody goes to church. You know, not everybody can go for one reason or another, like shut-ins or people that have been hurt by the church or different things like that. They won't go, but yet they realize there's still something missing in their heart. So I'm believing that my book may be the kind of book that will draw them in, even though they're not per se in a church.
And that's important, because what we try to express by having guests like yourself and other guests on the show who do writing or as authors or as inspirational speakers or anything like that, a lot of times a lot of people don't understand is the process of life. That's why you're given eyes, you're given ears, you're given a mouth, you're giving a brain, you're giving different components to absorb what the world will give you. So for those that might not want to go to church and sit in the congregation, they may absorb better by reading. They may absorb better by hearing, and not absorb so much by being in a congregational setting. They may not automatically get the same feeling that they would get if they had your book in hand. There's something different about the feel of a book. It's like the difference between, you know how sometimes they say, well, I read the book, but I didn't like the movie. Well, if the movie was based on the book, why didn't you like the movie? I didn't like the idea of seeing the movie as much as I enjoyed reading the book. So sometimes we have to let people sit in our work. You know, sometimes they have to sit in, and that's the purpose of the interview, for people to see a little bit more of who you are, so that they can understand what they're reading about and the person that they're reading about, who wrote it, you know, how they feel. So it really helps. But of course, I've got to ask this: why poetry? Why poetry?
Why poetry? That was just what came about. I just noticed the things that I wrote were rhyming, but now I had to develop that gift. It just didn't come out perfectly. At first, you know, the syllables, the flow was not right. This didn't sound right, and I had to develop it over the years. And sure enough, the Lord would bring people across my path that would help me. There was some writing courses that I took back in the day, and I learned some things, and then some other people came across my path, and it just kind of developed into the style that I have now.
And the thing about it is, I think I found out, like I said, I was pretty, like yourself, I was pretty profound in English. So I had a teacher that I actually I don't know why, but none of us really liked her in high school. We didn't like this teacher at all because she was dead on Shakespeare, dead on sonnets, dead on poetry, dead on all types of different, styles of writing and different things. And I have said it more than once that God bless her, because I didn't realize how much I learned until I started writing.
Right.
I didn't realize how much I really absorbed, even though I pretended I wasn't paying attention. It was just a learning process, and knowing that all poetry doesn't rhyme. All poetry is not sing-song. All poetry is not based on the Shakespearean ideology or, the Roman, goddess and all of this other stuff. All poetry is not based on Bible verses. All poetry is not, it doesn't take on a form of that. It takes on the form of the person that writes it.
Right.
Inspiration that you give,
Yes, there's a lot of freedom in poetry.
Yeah.
And also, there's been several of my pieces that have been set to music. So that was just a real incredible blessing, because I just didn't have any idea that was up God's sleeve.
Yes.
They were sung in Christian movie and Christian coffee shops, and set to music and so forth. And the gentleman that did them, he was such an incredible musician. He could play that guitar, and he never took a lesson in his life.
Oh, wow.
When I hear about this, it's like, who taught the people that gave the lessons, right? So
right.
Nobody but God's going to get the glory.
Right. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Beautiful. That's beautiful. That is beautiful. And now, are all your poems inspirational poems?
I would say, they give God all the glory. I talk about different kinds of emotions, and some of them, some are kind of solemn, some are kind of upbeat, some are just a variety, a variety. But in every one of them, I think there's a message. And that message,
and that's the important part. That's the important part of the words, regardless to how long the poem is, how short the poem is. The idea of most poetry that I have found and have followed has been either a message for self, a message for others, or a message to be shared. You know what I mean? It's either I'm speaking to voice and express and get out the words that I need for myself, or I'm expressing it so that others that have dealt with the same things that I've dealt with, or had the same fears or the same loves or the same, happenings, that we have some kind of connection, some kind of bond, and they can feel the same thing that I feel. But poetry is so emotional. It's it's one of those things that it touches you to say, hey, what do you think? How do you feel about this? How do you feel about that? And it reminds me all the time, because when we take one word, or we take one line of a poem, and that's the line that everyone remembers, or that's the closing that everyone understands, then you've made that connection. So inspirational poetry is beautiful. It's beautiful. And I thought that when I read your bio and I said, wow, she uses it as a ministry. I wonder how many poets thought of their words as a ministry. Because sometimes we don't know we're ministering. We don't know.
And again, the purpose really, I think, for each of us is just to do and obey and follow the alignment and the purpose for which God had us to do the thing that you were assigned, right? So, it is about your obedience, and however the world receives it is not how, is basically your business, right? It's like you did the job that you were called to do, and not just a job, the ministry, the calling, the alignment, the assignment. You did that part. That was your part. And then how God will use it, to bless others, to connect on the path, that's out of your control for the most part, right? So, and even if he gives you in your heart the desire to be the blessing of that, it's still it's still out of your hands and out of your control. Your part is to actually do it, just do it. And then the people will come, like, where the field of dreams, if you build it, they will come, right? You know. Yeah. But the part his part, Kevin Carpenter's part, was to build it, not to like say, "No, everybody come watch me build this thing. I'm gonna do something really great." Da 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 da. For you build it, and then the thought, of course, for him was, "I'm building it, and they will come. They will come. They will come." And again, words have power, no matter if you're speaking them or you're
Yeah.
writing them down. They have power, and the people that are meant to find it will find it.
Yes. Yes. I'm just believing God's going to do great things with
Yeah.
this. And
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But we have to trust that it's His great things, right? And get out of the way of it, right?
right. And,
Yeah.
he knows what every precious heart needs. And uh, he knows what it's going to take. And,
Well,
yeah, you just leave it up to him.
right. And that's the very definition of His word will not return back to Him void. It's
Yes.
the very
Yes.
definition of that. He spoke it,
Yeah.
your heart received it, and therefore you manifest it.
And you
And
manifested it.
yeah, you
Exactly.
manifest it, and so that His word will never return back to Him void. Someone told me the other day, I think it was in one of our Bible studies, and it said, if you don't listen to God when He's calling you to do something, He'll find someone else to do it.
Mhm.
Yes. And
Mhm.
that's what I think that's scary.
Yes,
Well, not only that, the thing about it is too
it
that,
should be, because they were
that
walking in disobedience to Him, right? So it
yes,
should
yeah.
be very scary, especially when we believe in Him. If we believe in Him, we have the power to do anything He tells us to do, or
Mhm.
ask of us. We have the ability and the power to get it done.
Well,
Mhm.
Mhm.
through through this experience and watching my book be born and carrying it, um, when I saw the cover of it, it brought me to tears. When I
Mhm.
Mhm.
saw the back cover of it, it brought me to tears.
Yeah.
And just the experience of watching it evolve into something I could, after all these years, physically manifest and hold in my hands and see it.
Mhm.
I was just like, just
And,
almost
and,
like speechless.
and
And I found that seeing this before me, it's
mhm.
like I'm just falling deeper and deeper in love, and just I'm wanting to just continue to write and to write.
Mhm. And
Right.
Shary, I'll share this with you as someone that has written. Like I said, I've written enough where I should have more books, but I don't have more books. But I write novels. I do children books. As I said, I have 3 volumes of poetry. I have not published the poetry yet. But and I wrote a self-help book. But I write with the nudge. The nudge, like Felice said, God comes to you and says, it's time for you to do this. It's time for you to do that. It's time for you to release this. It's time for you to release that. Now, what I want you to know is every time you get the nudge, You're going to get spastic about, I got to get it going. I got to get it going. The same feelings that you went from step 1, it does not change when you're on book 20. It does not change. That same process, the same, oh, I got to get it done. The same, oh, I'm stuck. The same, I need the pen and pad right next to me. The same, I'm lost for words, don't know what the next words, where they're going to come from. That same process, every time you do a book, is going to be the same process. And then, like you said, when you get the book, the same tears, the same chills, the same excitement, the same, everything is repeated over and over and over. And it's almost to the point where you say, I already know how I'm going to feel. And no, you don't.
No,
It's brand
I
new.
haven't thought like that.
It's a brand new thought. It's a brand new process. It's an internal thing of it's almost like birthing.
I was going to say the exact same thing. It sounds like giving birth to a
You're
child.
birthing a new, and this is a new one.
Pains are the same,
and you go right. You go through the process again and again, and you attract different people.
Yeah.
Even though your first book may attract a certain group, your second book you may not have that entire group, but you have them pushing because they say, oh, but she did this one too.
Yeah.
And now she did this one, and then they push and they push and they put, and you get the same emotions.
Yeah.
Because now you are a spirit that is acting because you've been tapped on the shoulder and given an assignment. And sometimes I have to sit back and go, wait a minute. I'm already doing this. You want me to stop that? Yes, stop that and start this and go ahead and get it done, because I'm doing different genres. I do, like I said, I did poetry, I do children's books, I do fiction, I do self-help. And a lot of times I don't want to go into the overload of overloading myself, but I'm being obedient. Whatever when he says no, don't publish that right now. Just hold it. I hold it. When he tells me to push it, I push it. So you're going to get that. Welcome to the world of being an author. That's just the way we live, and get plenty of notebooks and plenty of ink pens. And stickies are good too. Make sure you keep all of that stuff, because that's exactly what you're going to go through, and it's a whole new process. So welcome.
Thank you. People have been very gracious to me, and they have bought me they've bought me journals. They bought me ink pens, and one of my favorite things to do when I sit down and write is I like a yellow highlighter and a refreshing cold drink. And just get started,
There you go.
Right. Well, now, words and healing. Let's talk about that a bit. You say that your words have been a ministry to others. They're based on the Christian values. They're based on different things. But do you think that your words were healing to you first?
Probably, yeah. I write about, pardon me, the things that are on my heart that I feel, and as I read the word and stuff, we can read a verse and then come back to that verse later, and it'll feel and sound altogether different. But yes, I think my words bring healing. They've healed me, and I'm believing that they're going to heal others too.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, your title of your book, He Spoke in the Night.
Yes, ma'am.
Why that title?
because when he started first bringing me words that rhymed and poetry and stuff, he would get me up in the middle of the night. You know, I soon learned that I better have pen and paper by my bedside. And so that's, you know, even though the night was the wee hours in the morning, was still the night, but also my title has a double meaning, is because he speaks in the night seasons of our lives. When we're open, when we're broken, when we're depressed, when we're sad, when we're grieving, and all those things that cause our heart to ache. He speaks in the night seasons of our lives. So yes, he spoke in the night. He speaks in the night.
And not only that, in our quiet moments, and in a lot of times, it's funny how we can't. You know, I'm just speaking on this in regards to death. You spoke about your brother. I'll speak about my daughter. Many people asked me during the time that, you know, preparing for the funeral, trying to get things together, how was I? And my thing was just staying connected to what I was hearing when it was quiet, in the quiet times, like you said, in the night.
Yes.
What I was hearing when there was no voices around me, or no one consoling me, or no one asking could they do anything for me. What was being spoken to me then? You know, and I can imagine that even, you know, going through different things that we go through in life, when you hear that voice more is in the quiet times. When no one is there to say it's going to be okay, or no one's there to say, you know, don't worry about it. You know, because it's the quiet times when we get that inspirational pull, because those are the times where we're asking for the strength, or we're asking for the way out, or we're asking for the answer. And we sit in the quiet and listen. You know, we can't hear it when everybody is around us saying,
Right.
"Oh, you can't hear it then." You know,
And I think, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, no. Go ahead with your thoughts.
I was just going to say, and I think, you know, that's true regardless of not just the hard times, but, you know, to know that you got a thought, you can feel something stirring in your spirit. But for myself, I have to have things quiet. TV can't be on. I can't have the radio on. You know, the dogs are all settled and this and that. And I've just got to have shh. And then I can hear that still small voice. Yes. Yes.
Well, mine is usually a hammer on the shoulder saying, stop it. Or something saying, calm down. You're going to be all right. You know, it's usually that jolt first and then the quiet. You know, it's usually that, hey, what are you doing? And then pay attention to what's going on. You know, I've very rarely had it where I've sought it without it already seeking me. For some reason, I've always been the respondent of the voice, or like you say, he spoke in the night. I've always been the respondent of it, of I hear you, you know, of me, you know, not so much asking because I've already prayed about it, and then I wait. You know, I've already given, you know, like I said, going into something like that with my daughter, I was already saying, let this be your will. And then once I got the response, I was fine. You know, like, you know, I got her. You know, this is what it is. You know, so I was able to go through it with a whole different mind after listening.
Right.
And being quiet and being still.
This word, yes.
And again, That's what I mean when I say a poet writing a book. You're almost making someone have to sit and be still, because in order to read, they've got to be focused on what they're reading. So a lot of what you've done and a lot of what you've added to has been a blessing to others.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
When your words when your words become a blessing to others, how do you actually feel about your words? What is your response when, for you internally? What do you feel when you have someone that you say, okay, they come to you and they tell you, your words have inspired me. Your words have blessed me. I've read your poems and I'm in love with your work, and I I recognize what you've done. How do you respond to them?
Well, first of all, I thank them, but at the same time, I'm so humbled. I'm so grateful because my words come from the throne room of heaven above. They don't, I just don't sit down and make this up. And it's like they're hearing, reading what the Lord, it's truly from the Lord. And the fact that that's touching their heart, that's very humbling for me, because how would it be if those words never came to pass, or I didn't take the time to write them? Those would just be lost words.
Yeah.
Right.
And the fact that those words are ministering to their heart, that's only by the power of the Holy Spirit that can do that.
Yeah.
And it just blesses me so, because I feel like to God be all the glory, but to see them know that they're getting healed, they're getting something out of it.
Getting something, yes.
That they need, that maybe they could not receive in any other way.
Right, right. And we never know. And we never know.
Incredible.
Yeah.
It's an incredible blessing for me. And I'm truly honored. I'm truly honored by that.
And you never know.
Yeah.
Well, one of your quotes that you put was, "My heart is stirred by noble theme as I recite my verses for the King. My tongue is the pen of a skillful writer," which is Psalms 45, verse 1. Lovely verse. I mean, the whole book of Psalms is poetic. The whole, I mean, the Bible itself is poetic, but the whole book of Psalms is song and poems and so poetically done. But the stirring of the noble theme, I recite my verses for the King. My tongue is the pen of a skillful writer. Do you sit in that seat well?
Not without the help of the Holy Spirit, I don't.
Exactly. Exactly. A lot of times too, I don't know if you find yourself doing it as well. A lot of times you start with a thought and the pen takes off on its own. I know it happens for me. I don't know how many people it does. Like a lot of times I look at it and go, wow, did I write that? It just takes off. Do you recite your poems?
Yes, I do. Some of them I do. Yes.
Okay. Do you recite them from heart, or do you?
Some of them, yes, I do.
Oh, okay. Okay. You're good, because I have no memory for them. And I have to, when I do poetry readings or I do poetry, I have to have the book in front of me and read from the book. I can express it the way I want to express it, but it is my poem, but I can't remember it. And because I've been writing so long, there are some poems that I wrote with the younger me.
Yes.
And if I went back to read it today, I would be changing some of the words because I
Oh,
know that
good.
life has changed
Yeah.
and my thought process has grown into
Mm-hmm.
the woman that I am today,
Yeah.
as opposed to the woman I was in college when I first wrote that poem.
Yeah.
So a lot of times I have to make sure that I read it exactly how it's written so that it
Mm-hmm.
comes across the
Mm-hmm.
same way that I wanted it to come across. Do
Mm-hmm.
you find yourself in that at all?
Um, yeah, sometimes I think we are our hardest critics.
Of course, yes.
When we write it originally the first time, it looks good. Then we come back a little while later and no, no, no.
Yeah.
And then we'll
Mm-hmm.
adjust. It might just be one word we adjust, or find
Exactly.
another word that means the same thing but in a different way or
In a
something.
different
Yeah,
way. Right,
yeah.
right,
And
right,
in
right.
that, and if you'll both allow me this, this conversation is really bringing me back to my godmother, Miss
Oh,
Thelma.
yes,
Yes.
yes,
So my
yes. She's a
godmother, Miss
poet.
Thelma. Yes,
Hmm.
she's a poet. She's in heaven now.
Oh,
We met like on, well, God's purpose. It's just truly that. We met in the Atlanta airport, like it's by happenstance, but God stands because uh, we met literally at one of the terminals, and just over the course of meeting and flying to our destination, we were connected. We were connected. We adopted one another right then and there, and she
that's amazing.
expressed,
That's
yes,
amazing.
it's amazing, and she expressed to me that she wrote. Um, what did she say? She labeled it Christian poetry, and like you, God would bring things to her in the night and would press upon her to write this out. And she published a beautiful book, self-published. But then she is in her last years, she had the strong desire to republish, but at the time she just had most of them typed out and written, and she wanted, and so we had this beautiful time of recreating her book of poetry.
Oh, that's
um,
wonderful.
and it is wonderful because she came, well, she said to me in despair or in sadness, she said, I have all of these poems and I have these papers, but I need them, retyped and put them electronically and all that. And so we, this, and she had given up. And I was like, oh no, do not
Yeah,
give up
we
on
have
the
to get it
dream.
done. We have to
Yeah.
get it done.
But it turned, for me, it turned out to be a replacement of a hurt. And I just won't go into a whole story, but of my maternal grandmother, and just all my memories of her are negative and filled with abuse. And I always felt that God brought me Miss Thelma because He
You
needed
needed
me.
that grandmother.
Yes, He needed me to have someone connected in that grandmotherly figure to love on me and to nurture me and that kind of thing. And so it was a beautiful, beautiful gift. And then just to be able to do that and have that connection of, yes, just a relationship, really, more
And
or
what a
less.
beautiful way through
Yeah.
poetry, because poetry is precise.
Hmm.
You get to the heart, you
Hmm.
get to the mind, you get to the
Hmm.
soul. It's
Hmm.
precise.
Yeah.
It tags you just
Hmm.
enough to pull you in
Yeah.
and just enough to get your emotions flurrying, you
Hmm.
know, and
Yeah.
stirring them. So
Yeah.
to stir them on a path of not only a message, but a
Hmm.
Christian path to
Hmm.
show the love for God as well as the love for self.
Hmm.
And some people say, I always say, self-care is not selfish.
Hmm.
It's not selfish to say that you spend time with
Hmm.
yourself. And a
Right.
lot of times that's what a poem does. It brings you into self. It brings you into that. The second
Hmm.
thing that was a verse that I've always enjoyed. is take delight in the Lord and he will give.
Mhm.
He
Yes.
does,
Your
you
heart.
know.
The
You have to,
desires of your heart. Yes.
yes,
Mm-hmm.
he will give. He will give you.
Mm-hmm.
He will give you. The thing about it is a lot of people think that you have to be about, this faith or that faith or that faith or that faith. How about we just
Mm-hmm.
believe? How
Yeah.
about we how about we just believe? Because
Yeah.
it's an individual thing. It's, I can't take the whole congregation with me when I go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I better have an individual thing going on, because I can't say, well, but on Sunday we sang in the choir. It
Right.
doesn't matter if you sang in the choir.
Mm-hmm.
You got to have that personal connection.
Mm-hmm.
So with your poems, you're giving another reason for that personal connection. Such a
Mm-hmm.
beautiful, beautiful thing. So for our audience, you can get in touch with Miss Shary Issac at her on her website. Well, not her website, her actual Facebook page.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you can get in touch with her there. They
Mm-hmm.
can get they can contact you for a copy of your book there as well.
Um, uh, they can contact me on Amazon. I'm on Amazon.
You're on
Mm-hmm.
Amazon.
Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
the book can be sold on Amazon. And again, the name of the book, the title of the book is He Spoke in the Night, and it is a book of inspirational poems. It's a book of poetry as a
Mm-hmm.
ministry for healing, for
Mm-hmm.
insight, for self-comfort.
Yes.
Find comfort in reading Miss Shary's book. And we want to thank the audience as well as you for being with us tonight. I really, really appreciate you
Well,
taking the time to be with us. And we hope that, we're not even gonna hope. This is not your last book. So make sure you make your last appearance with us, because we're going to hear you come back again and tell us how overwhelmed you are about your second book. So we want to hear that from you. That's what we want. But before you go, Felice has a question for you.
Yes, I do. So thank you, Miss Sherry, for, again, giving your gifts to the world and not,
thank you so much.
being
You're
selfish.
welcome. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, it is. So we always ask the people that are giving their gifts out, just in the responsibility of having that gift and sharing it to the world. We just want to know, how you fill your cup, so that you don't give from an empty cup, and that you're restored and made whole. And it's just a responsibility when you have such a gift.
Okay. I didn't catch all the question. How my
How
what
do you
now?
fill your cup? How do you fill your
Oh,
cup?
how do I fill my cup?
Hmm.
Oh, well, I tell you, I am a reader. Um, I have a variety of ways I fill my cup. Sometimes it's just reading the Bible. Sometimes it's beautiful devotional books. Oh,
Hmm.
I'm very fond of devotional books with scriptures.
Okay.
And sometimes I just see things on the Facebook, or sermons on the YouTubes or whatever. But yeah, we can't let our cup go dry, because then we won't have anything to share with anybody
Sure.
else.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it's important to keep our cup filled. When
That's right.
some people feel like, oh, they get bored with strictly reading the Bible. I've got
Hmm.
all kinds of Bibles, all kinds of different
Right,
versions. But
right.
but
Yeah.
I'm a major bookaholic. My basement
Yeah.
is filled with books.
Awesome. Awesome.
Okay,
So,
awesome,
so
awesome.
yeah, just I enjoy reading. I enjoy reading. I enjoy listening to what the other sermons have to say and so
Yeah.
forth. And I'm involved with about 3 or 4 other things through church. Go to
Hmm.
church, and so um, that's how I stay plugged in. We got to stay plugged into the power.
That's
Amen.
right. That's
Amen.
right. That's
That's
right.
so
That's
true.
right.
So
Well, we,
true.
we want to thank you for being our guest. We want to
Yeah.
thank you for your work. We want to thank you
Thank you
for
very much for having
putting
me.
pen to pad and taking on the challenge of being a published author. It's a highway, and the destination is yours, wherever you want to go with it. So I want to encourage you, author to author, to stay on it and don't get off the highway, because we need, your type of book to lay the road for everybody else. We're laying the path for readers, so we want to make sure you stay on that highway.
I am
and
going to take
yes,
this real quick.
yes.
Thank
Say
you so
again.
much. Yes, I got it. Thank you so kindly.
Okay. And I want to thank our audience. I want to thank those that have tuned in, those that will watch the replay. Make sure you watch us on my YouTube channel, iPen Visions, as well as on my website, www.nanetteMbuchanan.com. Felice, my love, thank you so much. I appreciate you. And stand by, everybody, as we close out the program.
Thank you, Miss